Hello, howdy ho. We have just survived an incredible cold snap here in Colorado. I've been so grateful, extra grateful for wood burning fireplace and heat and hot water and all of those wonderful modern conveniences that make our lives so incredible in the West and are so easy to take for granted. We as humans lived for millennia without ever taking a hot shower. And I can take 4 hot showers, 5, 6 in a day if I want. I could live in there. Would be an interesting life choice. I think Kramer and Seinfeld gave that the best run for its money. But anyway, we are so free and we have so many blessings. And even in this country, not everybody has the many blessings that we do and the access to warmth and food. And anyway, I just feel very grateful. It's been a very cold week, but also cozy. Lots of good things happening. It's the first time I've worn red in 7 or 8 months. Worked somewhere for a while where red was part of the uniform, and yeah, haven't wanted to wear it for a while, but today it feels good. So, want to jump into part 2 of reading Emmet Fox's Getting Results by Prayer, but what this is really about, and I love Emmet Fox in the frank way that he speaks about the spiritual journey. I think he's very pragmatic in the way that he lays it out, and it's something that we should be able to talk pragmatically about. I feel like whenever you start to talk about finding a spiritual path or being on the right spiritual path or being on the spiritual journey, people get really emotional, and then sort of people think that there's very limited options. For some reason, even having the conversation that sort of the spiritual journey is one that should be pragmatic, that you should think about choosing the right option for you because this is your journey between you and your soul. That's an offensive conversation to some people. Some people say, no, you shouldn't say there's any flexibility. There's one path. This is what you have to believe. This is the only way to get there. And so there's a lot of emotion in that conversation rather than being able to have a more logical, pragmatic approach, which says, if God really is congruent and loving and logical and all loving and all knowing, then this wouldn't be some kind of faux pas topic to say, oh, don't ask that question. It's beyond our knowing as his creation. Our God would want us to research and ask these questions and come at it in such a way that it makes logical sense, because ultimate truth is ultimate truth. And we wouldn't fear people questioning or exploring what is their ultimate truth, because they're always going to come back to the place of what is good and ultimately the truth. The journey might look differently for different beings, but in the end, we will all choose what is good and right. And I think that's the area of contention, because there's this idea in some thought processes that we are innately bad and cannot trust our nature and will not innately choose the right, good thing. And it's this sort of negative undercurrent about where we emanate from and what we really are, and trusting our own nature. But you can't have an all-loving creator and not be an all-loving creation. Like begets like. That's just one of the rules of the universe. So if you have an all-loving God, then you as a creation are all-loving and all good. You can't have something that's good create something that's bad. It actually goes against law. So we are designing God in our image often, in sort of this sort of human, condescending, self-righteous, judgmental dictatorship, if you will, at times, or at least monarchy, idea of God, versus something that actually is congruent with the message of the Bible, which is something that's sort of much more what Emmet Fox is talking about here, a journey that we each are on with ourselves and our own divinity. Like there's an independence and autonomy to each person's journey, and thinking that someone else's is supposed to look like ours is where we get off track. And so this sort of pragmatic dialogue about, hey, if you're on the spiritual journey, if you're asking questions, good. Be pragmatic about it. So in the last reading, we closed off with Jesus saying, hey, by their fruits ye shall know them. And saying, man, know thyself, thy true self, which is the divine I am. And so we see that the best movement, the finest textbook, the greatest teacher is just the one that happens to best fit the individual need. In other words, there's many options so that you, if you're searching, can find one that works for you. So let's continue on that same vein. So by their fruits ye shall know them. It's something we've talked about here, and I was talking about, like, let's get back to really assessing who people are based on what they do. And if their words are incongruent with their actions, let's take note of that, right? Like, let's balance that. Let's get beyond just saying we believe something and checking a box, but how are people really living? So the great peril to true religion has always been the building up of vested interests in wealthy organizations or in the exploitation by individuals of their own personalities. So such a brilliant writing. An organized church is always in danger of developing into an industry which has to provide a living for numerous officials. When this happens, the rank and file are surely to be severely discouraged from seeking spiritual things for themselves at first hand. Right? Once you institutionalize the journey, it's no longer an individual journey, but this spiritual, evolutionary, expansive process is one that by its very nature is individualistic. So you can't do it on an organizational level, or you lose the ability to really connect with, what's it saying, seeking spiritual things for themselves at first hand. So a tradition of loyalty to the organization is built up as a means of self-protection. And I'm realizing this is the point I've been noticing a lot with Christianity. And because, I have many Christian friends, I love the church, I attend events associated with it and stuff, but there's very specific answers they have to every question, which I find interesting. And it's like nobody steps out of line. Everybody just parrots these same beliefs and then says they're factual because they're from the Bible, but really it's just what all the pastors are saying about this particular interpretation at this time. And you can sense that because it's a tradition of being loyal to the organization. We don't ask these questions. We don't ask certain questions. We kind of understand that by asking them, we're stirring the pot in the wrong direction. We're kind of taught where those boundary lines are, what questions are allowed and what aren't. So it's not loyalty to truth or to your own soul, be it remarked, but to the ecclesiastical machine. And I understand where that gets us off course, because it becomes a business, and I'm a businesswoman in business. And once something becomes a business, it has different needs. It's just, when you're cutting payroll and you have all the needs of a business, it's not good. It's like a conflict of interest, basically, to cross over business with spirituality. That's what this is getting at, right? The needs of a business and income affect your ability to truly trust and make the fully spiritual decisions. That's why you can't have two masters. And once it becomes a business, money is your master. Okay, so thus the means becomes an end in itself, and spiritual power then fades out. Rash promises and vague claims take the place of real, verifiable demonstrations. And those still exist. That's not to say that you don't see any of those in Christianity, but you do see more people parroting what they think they're supposed to say, rather than, words don't teach, only life experience teaches, rather than having, I think, these deep, impactful experiences, although they do still happen in all faiths. In the case of leaders who exploit their own personalities, this is great too. The student is discouraged from going elsewhere for enlightenment or help. Like if I were to say, you must come here and I will teach you. It's one thing I realized too, I wanted to stay away from all of that. I don't want to be on a pedestal. I really hate that. And I get, that's what he's talking about here, is people who put themselves on a pedestal and then exploit that. So here again, loyalty to something other than God is allowed to block the avenue of truth. So loyalty to a teacher or a person or human personality. And that's where we get, when we get these folks that are really in the media. And I realize now that's why I would have an issue with like Taylor Swift or any main mogul in the media that uses their name and then says, I am the way for you to find salvation, essentially. I am the way or the path, right? Which when people are selling books and self-help, there can be an aspect of that. And I think that's where you run into issues like, say, with Doreen Virtue, as I talked about that before, but where people think she's their avenue to light and connection. And so when she changed her story, it hurt people because they were using her as part of that avenue, where we each have to build our own connection with God. So here again, loyalty to something other than God is allowed to block the avenue of truth and therefore becomes the Antichrist. You can turn anything into an idol, even another person, a belief system. What is this but the jealousy of the petty tradesman who warns a doubtful customer of the danger he runs into by going to the shop next door, not trusting the process and your own abundance? When you're undermining someone else, you're not having faith in your own abilities. You think you have to take someone else down a peg to get ahead. That's an automatic scarcity conversation. Remember that you absolutely owe no loyalty whatever to anyone or anything but your own soul. Where do you hear this? This is such a powerful, important message when you are on the spiritual questioning journey, right? You owe absolutely no loyalty whatever to anything or anyone but your own soul and to the furtherance of its spiritual development. Your most solemn duty is to make everything secondary to that. To thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Everything is a projection, so if you're being true to yourself, then you're going to be who you truly are with everyone. It's sort of a trick to the universe to realize you're only really in relationship with yourself. You're sort of in this independent dream, and that's why when you're out to get someone, you only end up hurting yourself in the long run. Like, it seems like something else is attacking you, but it's your attack on someone else that's being reflected back at you. So if you aren't being true to yourself, then you're constantly lying all over the place because you're lying to yourself and everything is reflected. So to thine own self be true. When you're true to yourself, you can't be false to anyone else. And what a powerful reminder, and how cool and pragmatic to lay this out, that I think is such a key component of being on the spiritual path. So I'll say it again. You owe no loyalty whatever to anyone or anything but your own soul and to the furtherance of its spiritual development. Your most solemn duty is to make everything secondary to that. We're just here to expand and follow where our souls lead, our inner beings, the Holy Spirit. The first step that the earnest student must take is to settle on a definite method of working, selecting whichever one seems to suit him best and then giving it a fair trial. How logical, right? Find a method and try it and see if it works. That means that you must acquire a definite method or system of spiritual treatment or scientific prayer. Merely reading books, making good resolutions, or talking plausibly about the thing will get you nowhere. What I say, lip service, you got to do it. Get a definite method of working, practice it conscientiously every day, and stick to one method long enough to give it a fair chance. You would not expect to play the violin after 2 or 3 attempts, or to drive a car without a little preliminary practice. Having got your method, set to work definitely on some concrete problem in your own life, choosing preferably whichever is causing you the most trouble at the moment, or better still, whatever it is that you are most afraid of. Work at it steadily. And if nothing has happened, if no improvement at all shows itself within, say, a couple of weeks, at the outside, then try it on another problem. If you still get no result, then scrap that method and adopt a new one. How logical is this? Find something you think will work, try it. If it doesn't work, keep trying. Don't get disheartened. Don't give up. Don't think that there's no successful way. But how cool is it? Like, it's like, just like I said, like when you want to research or come at any problem in life, just come at this the same way. Hey, what works? There's something happening here that can be tested and I can receive results. So if it's something that I can test and get results, then I just want to find the most effective way, right? Figure out the rules of the game. And this is a way to say, how do you figure out the rules of the game? Well, trial and error is an effective way. And that's what she's guiding us to. Remember, there is a way out. That is as certain as the rising of the sun. And he's not talking about death being the only way out. And sometimes I think we can get caught up in that negative trajectory. But he's saying, no, there's another way out. The problem really is not the getting rid of your difficulties, but the finding of your own best method for doing it. So we can get rid of our difficulties. We just have to figure out the best method for doing it. Isn't that nice? If ill health is your difficulty, do not rest until you've brought about at least one bodily healing. There is no malady that has not been healed by someone at some time, and what others have done you can do, for God is principle, and principle changes not. If poverty is the trouble, go to work on that and clear it up once and for all. It can be done. It has been done. Others have done it, and you can. If you're unhappy, dissatisfied with your lot or your surroundings, above all with yourself, set to work on that. Refuse to take no for an answer and insist upon the happiness and satisfaction that are yours by divine right. If your need is self-expression, artistic, literary, or otherwise, if your heart's desire is to attain to eminence in a profession or some kind of public career, that too, approached in the right spirit, that's what I'm going to attempt to do, is a legitimate and worthy object, and the right method of scientific prayer will bring you the prize. Keep a record of your results and on no account be satisfied with anything less than success. Above all things, avoid the deadly error of making excuses. I love this. My mom always harped on that when I was younger, that excuses were so bad. Don't make excuses. And then later I realized she made a lot of excuses, but then I've also learned, as I've said, it's a projection-based environment that we're in here. Everything is really an electrical impulse of some kind, so that actually makes sense. But obviously, if she was criticizing others for making excuses, it must be something she does, or it wouldn't be in her space. It's a funny thing you notice, but she really helped me not make excuses. And I can feel the power that gets sucked out of you when you give excuses, because you're giving your power away in some way, blaming something else, when really you chose to give your power away to that and not make it happen. So there are no excuses for failing to demonstrate. When you do not demonstrate, it never by any chance means anything except that you've not worked in the right way. He doesn't mince words. Excuses are the true and veritable devil who comes to tempt you to remain outside the kingdom of heaven while the gates stand open. I love that. That's your ego mind telling you, that you aren't divine. You're just the physical. Excuses, in fact, are the only enemy that you really need to fear. Find the method that suits you. Cultivate simplicity. Simplicity and spontaneity are the secret of effective prayer. Work away steadily. Keep your own counsel, and whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do. I really dig this. I think it's one of, like I said, one of the most, and it goes on. So there's another one. Then next one is called The Great Adventure. So I'm going to read that next because he's really digging into a very pragmatic way to come at spirituality and saying, hey, try what you want, but don't get overly attached to it. Learn the method of that particular methodology or thought process or religion and try it to effectively solve your problems. I mean, it's not working. Try another one until you find something that really works. And Emmet Fox obviously spent a lot of time talking about positivity. It's very much in the same vein as Neville Goddard, and really in the early 18th century. So he was around like the 1930s to 50s, I think was his, I think he was born in like 1880. But anyway, so they were around talking about this and about basically how the Bible is a journey in consciousness. And when you really hear what it's talking about and learn that you are a creative mechanism, or sort of a creative focusing mechanism for this force, this I am present, that's the consciousness of God, and are creating your reality with this sort of gravitational law of attraction. It's basically a form of gravity, of things like things attracting to other like things. And we don't think of as emotions as vibrational and attracting, but they are. So the happier you are, the more you attract happy things. The sadder you are, the more you attract sad things. And so they began to realize, and were teaching, how a positive focus creates more and more positivity. And so his demonstrations and his scientific prayer is really just not thinking about your problem, handing it over to God and focusing on just the good attributes of God. And he's like, you don't even have to be religious or really believe in God. It's just a matter of distracting your mind and believing in that, or finding something positive you can think about and believe in that has some form of divine power, just building that connection and focusing your mind there. Meditation, positivity, believing that everything is well and will be well, and understanding that connection to what shows up in your life. So it's well before the time of Abraham, but teaches a very similar message. And I love his pragmatic approach, right? Just being practical, like just try it. And if it works, great. Build faith in your own system. Course in Miracles always says that as well. You know, if you practice this and apply it, you'll prove it to yourself that it's true. And anything that has a fear or tells you not to test or try should be questioned, because it speaks to a vulnerability in that faith base that you might end up choosing something else. Well, if something's really true, you're just going to continue to prove its truth. It doesn't need to be insecure about other faiths that are out there that could undermine it, because you'll always come back to what is ultimately true. And like I said, that goes back to a confidence also in our goodness and where we come from, that our Creator is good, and as a result, so are we, the creation. So anyway, some interesting things to explore. I think a fun thing to digest and reflect on if you are on the spiritual journey or just starting out, or I don't know, for me, I always had a lot of question and abound the question, like shame around even asking questions. In the faith I came up in, you weren't really allowed to explore what worked for you. That would have been an absurd idea, because there's only one way and one right method. So it was my job to make myself fit with this one right method, not look for a spiritual path that fit me. That wasn't an okay way to think about it. And it's an interesting thing in religion where it's like, you know, you're a square peg, make yourself fit into that round hole, rather than saying, I'm a square peg and I get to search out, you know, the right hole for me. I don't know, that's a weird metaphor, but I think you're picking up what I'm putting down here as far as coming at spirituality as a research science a bit, because there is this natural law of gravity that can be sort of tried and tested and studied, that Abraham talks about all the time, the law of attraction, or the law of assumption, as Neville called it, but it can be tried and tested. And Emmet Fox talks a lot about making complete and miraculous demonstrations because of the way he recommended to use this tool, scientific prayer, which is, again, it's the golden key, which I have under another reading. But you think about God, or you think about the goodness of God, or feeling safe and happy, rather than thinking, you replace thoughts about a certain problem with those thoughts. And it's a way of handing the issue over to a broader, more powerful thing, and allowing it to find the solution. And isn't that the exciting path that we're on here, exploring what path works first, finding freedom in that exploration, fun in that exploration, and understanding that it's our birthright to ask questions and explore and enjoy the journey, and understand that our different shapes and beliefs and ideas work for the betterment of that which we call God and this entire playground as well. There isn't a negative to it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for exploring with me. Appreciate you.